I have four main modalities that I do. I do the professional cuddling therapy, which is what I'm going to talk to you mostly about today. I also work with people over the phone, which is particularly great if they're not local or in this time of COVID. It's been great to be able to work remotely with folks. I have an online course, multiple that I've created, but one that I'm currently running. And then I also do the live group events, sometimes teaching around like my online course, but often these touch and cuddle events. But this little like rainbow rosette thing over here is the main skills that I love to work with in people, regardless of what we're doing. And I often start with the blue, the communication. Listening and speaking skills are the things that I really love to help people with, but also listening to them. Like, people are super hungry to be listened to. And all of you know this, right? Because you all work with people in a wellness capacity, and just how much people love to be deeply gotten and listened to. And that in itself can be healing. And then I also help people find their yes, what they want to move towards, and their no, where they want to set their boundaries. And a lot of how I do that is in this professional cuddle therapy mode, where you're really embodied. And from the embodied, from the trusting your own body, your felt sense of self, you get to notice, what do I want to move towards and what do I want to move away from, in a way that the brain can get kind of confused around. It's like, well, I'm not really sure what I want, and I want these 6 different things. And when we bring it into this physical touch and holding space, it's very in the moment and it's very specific. And people are able to start to develop that muscle of, what do I want and what do I want to move towards, and what do I not want and what do I want to say no to, have some space from. They're able to start to develop that muscle in a way that can have some pretty profound ripple out effects in the rest of their lives. And it's one of the reasons that this professional cuddle therapy can be really complementary to the other work that we do in the wellness group here, especially the coaching and the talk therapy that is wonderful and often very cognitive, to bring in this real embodied and rather simple, right? Do I want to move towards? Do I want to move away? So I want to tell you a little bit about what it is, the professional cuddle therapy. One, it's platonic. It is not sexy. You can tell from what I'm wearing, it is not sexy. You know, I'm in like t-shirts and yoga pants or pajama bottoms most of the time. And you know, we don't reach under our clothes. We're not making out. We're not getting naked. We're not going for any kind of turn on. If any sort of arousal happens, because sometimes it does when people get close to each other, it's not a big deal. I don't shame or blame my clients. It's not like, oh my God, how could you do that? It's like, we'll shift to something that's more nurturing, less arousing, take a break, grab some water, whatever. We can talk about it or not as my clients choose and as it feels appropriate. But just to know, even as I say, it's really platonic and not sexy, which is super true. People get benefits from their sex life from doing the cuddling work, because the same things that get in our way of connecting with people in a sexy context often come up in a cuddle session, but they come up slower and with less intensity and with more space to talk about them. So it can be applicable for people that want to work on something in their sex life, but it's totally platonic. It's very empowering. It's client-led. I do not bring people in and say, great, let's go through a series of poses that'll feel really good and you'll feel relaxed at the end of it. We don't do that. It's very much, what does the client want to do? Again, that trusting, what do you want to move towards and what do you want to move away from? And letting the client really like notice and move in their own body. And it develops this embodied sense of trust in the client. And that's also part of what I bring. And I had a client yesterday who was like, he's been coming to see me for 4 years. It's an awesome, awesome client. And he said, you know, I sometimes don't try to think about this too much because it works. This kind of therapy is working for me really well. And I don't want to think about it too much and break it. He's like, but sometimes I think about it and try to figure it out. And what I realized is that you never tell me, maybe I should feel a different way about this. Like if I come with an emotion, we'll put it in, he says, if he comes with an emotion, I never try to tell him it's not the right emotion or he should feel differently, or maybe what if there was a better way to be feeling about this? He's like, my emotions are totally welcome as they are. And I feel really welcome by you. And you don't tell me to like cut it out or stop being angry or tune it down, because sometimes he'll apologize for getting teary or getting angry. I'm like, your emotions are totally welcome, right? And he can move away from me if he wants to. He can stay close if he wants to. There's this real sense of trusting my clients. And so it's very empowering and client-led. And then the need that is most basically met in my sessions is the need for connection, for really feeling that sense of there's another human on the planet that gets me and is holding me, and also connection with the client within themselves, that connecting with that they are trustworthy. What do they want? What don't they want? They can move towards them and good things happen rather than bad things, because many of us have had bad things happen in our lives when we ask for what we want or when we say no. You know, people have gotten mad at us. They've withdrawn their love and affection. They've hurt us. They've done all sorts of things. And so to maintain connection as they're asking for what they want and as they're setting boundaries is really healing in some pretty profound ways, actually. So some of the things that can be helpful for chronic pain, loneliness, grief. And I'll go through these a little bit more later, but chronic pain, clients often during the session with me feel a relief from their pain. One client said she felt like, 60-70% reduction in pain in the days after the session, but for her, that was nothing compared to the zero pain she felt during the session. And that's also because it's very empowering and client-led. So, she's like, oh, my neck is really sore. It's been sore for like 2 years, blah, blah, blah. She told me her story. And she's like, but it's fine. We were sitting in maybe a position like the one in the picture. And she's like, but it's fine. And I was like, let's not go for fine. Let's really find a position that your neck feels good and supported. And then I can move into touch if you want touch that feels good to you. And so we did. And she wound up on the floor and like pillows under her neck. And I wound up sitting above her head, like she's lying down and I'm sitting above her head. And she wanted touch and stroking on her face and her cheeks. And we just did that for a while. And she was like, wow. And so everybody's wow is different. And it's pretty simple, but it's that real tuning into and trusting the client. Loneliness and grief are both things that are big right now. We've been pretty isolated with COVID, and our society is pretty easy to feel lonely and isolated from one another anyway. And we don't have, we have whatever we have to process grief and to support people through loneliness. And I will just say that this is one other tool and modality that can be really helpful to, again, be held, be touched, be connected. And then a client's coming right now who has had 5 major losses in the last year. Some of them have died. Many of them have moved away. And one of them was his therapist who just told him she was done practicing and, hi, I'm not going to see you anymore. And those are some major losses. Family members moving away, other support and wellness practitioners that he's worked with really closely moving away. And when I was talking to him, I said, I think I could be really helpful. The space to feel whatever you feel, again, while being held, touch is a human need. And especially when we're young, as we're children, we come into this world born to feel that connection to another, that physical connection with another. And many of us didn't get as much of that as we're kind of wired for neurologically, or we have that desire for as children. And so in many ways, there are unmet needs that we're carrying around still about, am I welcome in this world? Am I connected to other humans? Can I trust you? Can I trust somebody being close to me to be supportive and loving and nurturing rather than hurtful or inconsistent? And I am that for people. So some of my ideal clients are open-minded, right? Because obviously this is a relatively new and alternative thing. It's not mainstream yet. And so they've got to have some some curiosity, some willingness to check it out. They may have tried lots of other therapies. I get that fairly often. People that have had different talk therapists and they've tried different modalities within that. EMDR is a pretty popular one, even hypnotherapy that people have tried, because sometimes people are really trying to work through their trauma and kind of stop having their like fear reactions to people. And I have appreciate touch down there in quotation marks, because it's more like touch is a big thing in their world, whether there's like a marked absence, or whether they know that they want more of it, or whether they're having touch, but they're not really enjoying the touch that they're having. There's something around touch and that way of connecting to other people. And, people might not even talk to you about that. It's not something, we don't really talk about our touch needs and our touch aversions very often with one another. So the other two might be easier to spot. And some of my ideal clients may have experienced childhood abuse or neglect. That's, again, a lot of these things we don't talk about tons with one another, but when we experience our caregivers being inconsistent, neglectful, or abusive, that sense of I belong in the world, I'm connected, I'm safe, like my body is safe near other people, that gets interrupted. And we can work with that in this professional cuddle therapy setting to basically heal those wounds. And people then, anxiety and depression are, I'm not going to say I treat those, right? Because that would be inauthentic, but they often have good results related to relief of those symptoms from their anxiety and their depression. People sleep better. They find that it's easier to concentrate at work or with their family, and that also it's easier to have conversations that they've had a hard time with. Like the level of fight flight that's just been in their system is reduced. And so that's great for all of these. It's great for all of us, really, but it's great for all of these sorts of people. I also have really good experiences with folks who've gone through divorce, recently or not. Sometimes people are just getting out of a divorce and they want to start dating again, and they want to heal something that was part of that breach in the relationship before that led to the divorce. They want to heal that and not carry it into their next and future relationships. It's really good for that. And people that have had rape or other violence, particularly sexual violence, because cuddling is so often connected with sexual touch, again, it can be really good for helping people soothe and rewire so that when they're ready to move into more sexy touch with people, there's more relaxation in their system, and they're able to ask for what they want and set boundaries. They've practiced those skills when it comes to touch on their body. Again, that's why I say the platonic touch is so nice for this, because we slow things down and it's so much less intense than in a sexual situation, but the same skills apply. They learn how to notice what's going on in their body and how to ask for what they want and how to say no or set boundaries or redirect. Accidents or injuries, that really connects with the chronic pain. I had one client who was paralyzed from the neck down, and it was a really interesting session because obviously he couldn't like hold and cuddle me. I met him in his home and he was in his bed, and I climbed in with him and we talked a lot about what would work for him and whatnot, and how I could move and whether he wanted me to move his body or anything. And so it just was a really neat dance of connection and creation. But one of the things he said is that while he can't move his body, his nerves are still firing randomly and painfully. He can easily feel like he's got electric shocks going on at any part in his body. And that's his life. And he doesn't want to be on the intense amount of painkillers it would take to cut those out, because then he can't really, like, his brain doesn't function either. And so he said he just lives with it. During our session, I think we had about a 2-hour session, and he said afterwards that electric shock stuff wasn't going on for him, like 80% or more reduction. It was really reduced. And it was so nice to have that relief, and also to have the interesting physical touch and conversation going on. Like, his brain was engaged in a really different way. So he's like, I don't know whether it was the physical touch or whether it was just my brain was really engaged, but it was amazing to have that reduction in pain. And then again, on the grief, the people that have experienced loss from death or moving or some other transition, And another way that you might sort of tune up to look for ideal clients, I often work well with really smart professional, like people who have been in school for a long time, in their careers for a long time. So engineers, doctors, programmers, scientists, these people that are very in their head. I often work very well with those folks, which sometimes does overlap with sort of a neurodiverse crowd, but people that have some neurodiversity going on, they also tend to get along really well. And then the LGBTQ plus spectrum, I'm on that spectrum myself. And for folks that are used to being marginalized or perhaps singled out or abused based on how they present in the world and how they experience themselves, it can be amazingly healing, again, to have a space where you're really welcomed and your body is safe. And it's not somebody telling you what is going to happen, but you get to notice and guide and be with and be met. It's pretty amazing. And that might be, so here's a picture of my space as it was yesterday before I had a client coming in. I'm basically standing at my front door. This is my living room. And so there's a big comfy couch. There's a mattress that's made up. I make it up for each client. Everybody gets their own fresh linens and blankets and things. The curtains are set up to curtain the room off from the rest of my house. So it's kind of breezy and light while also really containing this space. So I find it to be a nice blend of homey and professional. And I've gotten that feedback from my clients too. And let's see. Yeah, I'll just go ahead and go through it. When people request a session from me, I reach back and we have an initial phone conversation, and that's somewhere between 10 and 45 minutes. It really depends on the client, usually around 20 minutes. And I just get really clear with them on what they're looking for and how they're hoping this is going to benefit their lives. Also, what the boundaries are, making sure that they're not looking for something sexual and going to be settling for cuddling. Like, I make sure people are really looking for what I offer. I don't want my clients to be disappointed, and I don't want it to be awkward for either of us. And so we really just make sure that we're a good fit and that we can set up a time to connect, go over things like cancellation policies and payments and all of that good stuff so that they're well set up before they arrive. They also get some forms for me to fill out, some related to COVID, some related to just agreements and terms. We do make sure to go over a code of conduct. And so one of the reasons I like being connected with the organization Cuddlist is because there's a very clear code of conduct that people have to check off on and agree to. But if somebody finds me not through Cuddlist, like through a personal referral like BNI, I do send them the code of conduct, and we make sure to go over that as well. And right, which has stuff about it not being sexy, but also it's confidential and how do we handle hygiene, just basic good stuff. Again, so people are set up really well when they come to see me. And I'll also go over COVID protocols with folks. As I mentioned, I see people that are all over this current spectrum that we have of vaccines will save the world to vaccines are going to wreck the world, whatever, wherever you are on your comfort level and what you need, I can work with you on it. And if necessary, refer you out to someone else. And yeah, the last thing, how do people get to work with me? You can go to cuddlist.com/Kassandra and request a session. And also on my website, KassandraBrown.org, the / is touch. And people can request a session. They can reach out, phone or text, or they can go through the same Cuddlist request a session form. And that's pretty much what I wanted to share with you all today. So I would love to know how that lands. Any questions? Did you fall asleep?